Rotation has got everyone playing some really weird decks, and I'm falling victim to the exact same thing. Recently, I played an online tournament, and I placed 5th out of 126. Now, you might think I played Dragapult or Zoroark, you know, one of the decks I'm known for. No. Team Rocket's Porygon and Team Rocket's Honchkrow. Yeah, things are weird. So this is my third time trying to record this video because the first time I forgot to unmute my mic and got about 15 minutes into the video, and the second time I just forgot to click record. So, yeah, unlucky. Anyway, this is the tournament that I played in, the post-rotation Circuito TCG number 2, right? And here is a good old me down in 5th, right? But something that is quite interesting is, in Swiss, I actually went 6-0, right? Until I got my ass handed to me by Okidogi, right? That is not a sentence I thought I would ever say in my life. I went 6-0 in Swiss with Murkrow, Honchkrow, Porygon, Team Rocket shit, and lost to Okidogi in top 8, the eventual winner of the event, actually. What? Okay, let's just take a quick squeezing turn at this top 8, right? This is straight Dragapult, cool. This is Dracloak Control. That's understandable, right? Lucario, Starmie, Okidogi, Greninja, and Okidogi again. What is going on here then? Right? Anyway, let's take a look at, you know, the deck that I played. So, shout out to Mr. Vian Vessels. He is the person who gave me this deck list. The night before the event, I played one game and then decided to play this deck like 30 minutes before the event because that's when I decided to play the event. So, the idea of this deck is, well, quite simple. So you've got Team Rocket's Honchkrow, which has one attack that you use, Ignore Hammerin. That doesn't, let's just color that in. That doesn't exist. We only use Team Rocket's Feathers, right? So Team Rocket's Feathers does, you may discard any number of cards, any number of supporters that have Team Rockets in their name from your hand. This attack does 60 damage for each card you discard in this way, right? If you think about it, it is basically just Goldengo, except with supporter cards. But there is a problem with this. Goldengo had superior energy retrievals, which could retrieve these energy cards, right? Whereas this deck doesn't have anything other than our singular ace spec, which can only retrieve 2 of our supporters, right? Everything else is just, once it's in the bin, we can't use it anymore, right? It's gone, right? The supporters are gone. We played 20 supporters, so essentially we have 22. But now you have to remember, we do play supporters during the game, right? Most games we will be using 3 or 4 Team Rocket's Ariana. Now we're limiting ourselves to, say, 16 supporters, plus the 2 from the A spec, right? So you might be thinking, against some decks, we're probably going to run out of supporters, right? We might prize some, it might be a little bit difficult, we might have awkward hands, we might have to play a few more supporters than we wanted to, and things might get, you know, shifty. Well, that's where our second attacker, secondary attacker, Team Rocket's Porygon comes in. And this guy is a really good late game attacker and a really shit early game attacker. So it has an attack that is basically completely contrasting to the Honchkrow. It says this attack does 20 damage for each supporter that has Team Rockets in its name in your discard pile, right? Keyword discard pile. So if you have 10 supporters in your discard pile, you're doing 200 damage. If you have 15, you're doing 300 damage. That is just an interesting looking 3. And, you know, the higher you go, the higher it gets. Usually you'll have like 18 at the end of the game doing like 360 damage. And this guy just tactically sends an ICBM and nukes whatever is on the field, right? Very good Pokemon. So the best thing about this deck, in my opinion, is that we are all 1 prizes, right? No matter what, our opponent has to take 6 knockouts. Unless, you know, we brick and we only find like 1 basic Pokemon and lose the game instantly. But that's besides the point. We are essentially, they need to take 6 knockouts, right? If you are asking if this is the list I would play again, no, I would cut Air Balloon and add a 4th Roto Stick. Roto Stick was the best card in the deck, right? Other than Team Rocket's Articuno, which we will look at very shortly, because we have to look at Mimikyu first, which is a tertiary attacker. So Mimikyu does have an attack that is usable. I didn't use it once, but it is usable. And it's usable against 2 specific matchups, I would say. Not Dragapult. This is a very bad attack against Dragapult, because against Dragapult you do not want to use damage counters in play for them to use Monkey Dory. Right, so Gemstone Mimicry, choose one of your opponent's active Terra Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So this is good against 2 decks. One of them is any deck that plays Ogerpon EX, the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. Usually when we see Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, we also see Meganium, right? So with the Meganium, I'm pretty sure I misspelled that. Some that's good. So Meganium, you know, essentially doubles the amount of energy, grass energy attached to your Pokemon. So usually they will attach 2 energy to the to this guy, not a 3rd one. and essentially that still counts as 4 energy, right? Because that's the minimum they need to actually use as attack. So they attach 2 to actually attack. And then, with our Mimikyu, since we have to attack a Team Rocket's energy to the Mimikyu, which counts as 2 energy already, essentially there is 6 energy between the Pokemon, 4 on the Ogerpon, because it's, 2 times 2, and then 2 on the Mimikyu. That means it's 6 energy. So with the 6, that's 18 damage, right? Because each energy counts as 3 damage, with the, does 30 more damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So it's 18, but then also plus 3 damage for the actual base damage. That means we are dealing 210 damage. So we are actually just straight up clean knocking out a Teal Mask Ogerpon, which is very nice, right? The only other Pokemon we can do this with as well is a Ceruledge, where we go ahead and copy Raging Amethyst and deal 280 damage to that Pokemon, right? Very simple. Those are the only 2 decks I would say Mimikyu is actually useful. Against everything else, it is cuttable. And then we have my MVP, the greatest card in the deck, and it is Articuno. Team Rocket's Articuno is absolutely beautiful. This deck is, you can see I was recording this video already because I've gone over this before. But Team Rocket's Articuno is my favorite card in this deck because of Repelling Veil. Repelling Veil has incredible use cases, and these use cases are best seen against Alakazam, which I played against in a tournament twice and beat both of them. The first time I didn't know about the Articuno tech and figure it out yet. Second time around though, it was free. He scooped in 2 turns, right? So, powerful hand places 2 damage counters. Very important that it says damage counters, and it doesn't say like it does 20 damage for each card. No, it does 2 damage counters to your opponent's active Pokemon for each card in your hand. That means it is an effect of an attack. It is not direct damage, so it is an effect of an attack. And if we read Team Rocket's Articuno, prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon all effective attacks by your opponent's active Pokemon done to your basic Team Rocket's Pokemon. Just keep in mind, it is basic. So that means your Honchkrow is not something that, survives this. That it doesn't get buffed by the Alakazam, the Articuno. But what does get buffed is the Murkrow. And this is very important. But you might be thinking, well, why does Murkrow matter? We're not going to be attacking with Murkrow. We are. And Murkrow is a really good attacker at that. So, Deceit is a pretty decent. I have used it before. Search your deck for a supporter card. Nice. Right, but Torment is the one that is important here. It does 30 damage, which is not bad. It can kill a Badoo, which is cool, but it can also become Alakazam's worst nightmare. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks. During your opponent's next turn, that Pokemon can't use that attack. So, if we take a look at Alakazam is not a threat, right? They can't actually attack us because, of powerful hand. So, we essentially 3-shot this because he is weak to dark, meaning instead of 3, we're dealing 6 damage each turn. So, it's 6, 12, 18, knocking that out. But Kadabra can attack us because this is Super Cyborg, just straight up does 30 damage, right? So it can 3-shot us, but the thing is that we'll attack it once, deal 60 damage to it, use Torment, and disable their Super Cyborgs. So they can't attack again. And you might be saying, oh, but what happens if they, evolve into the Dunsparce and they have they attack with the Dunsparce, they manually attach 3 times? Well, then we're just going to manually attach, we're going to knock out the Dunsparce, and move on with our lives, right? Because we don't mind evolving at least once, and then taking the knockout. Sure, they'll get the return KO, but then we just go back into our one-prize board state. The same way as if like, oh, but what happens if our opponent plays the Dunsparce EX? Well, then we're just going to knock out the Dunsparce EX and take 2 prizes, right? So, it is an almost perfectly free matchup. The same way Dragapult also struggles against this deck because this Articuno. So Dragapult essentially does, Phantom Dive 200 damage and then 60 damage to the bench. 60 damage counters. Remember, this is straight damage, SD. This is damage counters, DC, right? So this damage goes through. This will knock out our active Honchkrow, but this damage disappears if we don't evolve any of our bench Pokemon, and that is super important. So against matchups like Dragapult, you will only evolve one at a time. You'll evolve your active, and you'll evolve your active again once you're attacking with it on the following turn, and you'll evolve your active whenever you're trying to attack with it. Otherwise, everything is basic, right? And originally, I thought this card is going to be ass. I thought Articuno is going to be horrible. And then I realized, against, Dragapult Dusk Noir, you kind of want 2 of these in play. Otherwise, they're just going to, Dusk Noir this thing. And then all of a sudden, they have a very favored matchup against you. So, you kind of do need Articuno in play. Articuno is a very good card in this deck, right? So, that is the Pokemon. That is the the like basic idea of this deck, and I just think this deck is like really broken, right? You want to go first, you want to blind first every game because you can Team Rocket's Proton. But you what? Supporter first? That's not Carmine. Proton acts exactly like Carmine, where you can play it on your first turn, but this deck is even better because you have so many ways to actually find your Team Rocket's Proton and then set up multiple basic Pokemon. Proton says search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon, Team Rocket's basic Pokemon, sorry, reveal them and then put them into your hand. Very strong. And then the other supporters that we use, mainly we use Team Rocket's Ariana. Draw until you have 8 cards essentially because you only play Team Rocket's Pokemon. And this is broken, right? This is just busted. This is the support that you're using most of the time, right? You only really use other supporters when you start attacking with Porygon, right? Because early game, you are always using Ariana and Proton. Proton is like a one-off, though. You only use one to set up, and then you pivot into using the Ariana because you need to get cards into your hand to go ahead and use Rocket Feathers, right? And then at the end of the game, once you are no longer using Rocket Feathers and you're going to go Arcomon, that's when you're going to use something like a Boss's Orders. I mean, a Giovanni, which is essentially just Boss's Orders, but like Guzma. Or Archer, which is your Disruption, right? So this is basically the Honchkrow is the Ariana, and then the Porygon is these guys, right? That's the correlation between these guys. Whenever you are attacking with Porygon, you will be using different supporters. Whenever you're using Honchkrow, you're usually using Team Rocket's Ariana, unless you have a horrible hand and you have to Petrol for an Ariana, which I did twice during the tournament. I won both of those games. And then obviously you have Miracle Headset, but Miracle Headset is not really a card that you use to actually do more damage with. Sometimes it will be, but usually you are actually using this card to get, your Giovanni, to get your Archer at the end of the game to use with Porygon too, because a lot of the times you will have to be discarding these, and at times you'll discard all 4 before you actually get to use one with Porygon, so you'll use Miracle Headset to get this out of the bin and then use it. However, Team Rocket's, Miracle Headset just hasn't, I can't say it's been my favorite A-Spec. I definitely would be willing to explore different A-Specs compared to this one. I think Prime Catcher could be pretty decent as well, because it just means you can use Ariana plus Prime Catcher in the same turn, and Prime Catcher is just a good A-Spec, right? So is Secret Box. Secret Box is a pretty decent A-Spec as well, but you can Secret Box into an Ariana. You don't have a great way to find it, and you don't really want to Petrol into a Secret Box either because it takes a turn. But right now, this is where the list is. You might be thinking, oh, but how do we ever power up our attacks? Well, Team Rocket's Energy can power up Torment, can power up Rocket Feathers, and can power up Gemstone Mimicry, and then Ignition Energy can power up like this. Rocket Feathers can power up Arcomon, right? So your Ignition is not as important early game, whereas it's very important late game as it can power up the Arcomon in one. Whereas if you want to use the Rocket's Energy, you have to attach 2 of them to the Porygon, which is not great, right? This is probably my favorite one prize deck in the game, right? It is so strong. It is so good, and I genuinely think it's a contender for one of the best decks in the game. It beats Dragapult. It's more like maybe a 55 into Dragapult. Beats Alexam, that's like a 100-0 matchup. Beats Lucario, that's like a 70-30 matchup. And if you guys want to learn more about the matchups, I have a free guide on my Metafy, so I'll leave a link down below. You don't have to use the code because it's just free. So yeah, smash like, smash subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.